Макс, я очень горжусь, что я могу взять у тебя интервью. Для меня это большая честь. Так что начнем.
Thanks for having me here.
Расскажи, как ты узнал о саентологии, как ты пришел в саентологию?
I was actually looking for something spiritual. I was looking for hypnosis, for other kind of other practices then. It was when I was 17, 16, 17, 18, 19. And so I was looking around and I couldn't really find something good when I changed from where I grew up to Bern. And then someone gave me a flyer with the self-analysis book and I said, well, that sounds to be a good book. Let's go and buy it. And I ended up doing the OCA test and started with the concourse. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite books then was from Stern, The Sleeping Prophet, with Edgar Cayce. That impressed me so very much. And he's talking about Russia and that Russia will bring freedom or peace on earth.
Круто. А как ты, в какой момент ты понял, что это вот именно твой путь, что это вот твой духовный путь?
That's a good question. I just grew into it, and I really, in the beginning, I was a little bit euphoric. I was a bit really afraid of being euphoric about Scientology and so. And I was afraid to lose actually ground, you know, that I'm no more really down to earth. But more and more I started to see that with auditing, when I audited someone, I really changes people's minds. Erasing things, giving them abilities, taking off disabilities or things they just hated. For example, one of the moments was on the happiness rundown when I audited a person and she always had very, very wet hands, low TA and so. And then I audited her and from that very session her hands were absolutely normal, no more wet and just stable. And vice versa, I also had one of the biggest wins on the happiness rundown when I really got rid of valence. It was just absolutely surprising for me that such a thing can happen, that I have had such a valence. I've never expected that. And that really changed my beingness.
Круто. То есть получается, что ты не просто учился, а уже начал работать в церкви Саентологии. И вот здесь как раз мой следующий вопрос. Как произошло так, что ты пришел, как ты захотел именно работать, и как это все продолжалось? Что это была за организация? Что вы делали там?
That's kind of inevitable when you are somewhere on lines in the church. They just catch you for being a staff member. It's a big job not to become a staff member. That was actually always the time, and they just went into the interview for a register. Actually, it was Erika who was asking me for becoming a staff member, and then together with the HAS, the HAS, the Harvard HCO, I don't remember exactly what it stands for, he finally closed me on staff. So I came into Scientology beginning of September, and beginning of January I was a staff member. I was not even 20, I had to get the signature of my parents.
Круто! Я помню, я тоже, когда начинала учиться в церкви Саентологии, тоже очень-очень быстро меня стали приглашать, и я даже стала серьезно задумываться. Но ты знаешь, я что вспомнила? Очень интересная вещь. Меня когда звали в персонал, и даже у нас сразу всеорг, то я подумала, что когда я стану АТ-8, только тогда я приду в всеорг. И получилось, что АТ-8 я проходила уже в Ронсорге, и когда я проходила АТ-8, я поняла, что в всеорг-то я больше не приду. То есть как будто какое-то предчувствие, что нужно дойти до этого уровня, чтобы понять, что мне не нужно идти в церковь Саентологии, а что мне нужно в Ронсорг. Окей, вернемся к твоей жизни. И расскажи, пожалуйста, очень-очень интересно, как была устроена организация, в которой ты начал работать, сколько там было людей, чем вы занимались вообще, какой продукт вы предоставляли, потому что это же было практически во времена Хаббарда. И вот очень хочется знать, как бы она была близка к источнику, то есть близка к тому, как Хаббард хотел. Вот расскажи побольше об этом.
Yes, it was pretty much the original intent when we started, and I'm very happy about that we really got the tail end of the time when these times ended, because in 78 a big change started, and I was not aware of that. As it started actually exactly in the moment when I started with Scientology. I mean, this new aerodynamics and knots and so came all in September, summer 78, and it was exactly the moment when I started, and I was very happy to have started then. I mean, I was 19 then, I was pretty young, but I got all those people who have been trained before, you know, they have been trained in 74 or 76 or something, so they still were auditing and having the knowledge from the times when L. Ron Hubbard was around. I'm pretty sure today that the real L. Ron Hubbard was not around in 78 anymore. That was a big fake then. We didn't know that. Of course, we believed, oh, this is all L. Ron Hubbard and hip hip hurrah and so on. It was quite something. But I'm so happy that I got the original structure, the original teachings, even so they got changed pretty soon. Later I really could rely on that, and I remembered the staff members saying, oh well, you know, when we audited and so on, we had to go to cramming for this and that and so on, which suddenly was all different in 1979 or 1980 or even later. But I had that in my mind. I still have the voices in my mind, how they say that, and that was very, very helpful.
Super.
But to answer how big the org was, it was pretty big. I mean, this is what I'm sometimes a little bit ridicule here when I hear from a big org. You know, we have been an org in Bern. When I was Qualsec, shortly later, we were 79 staff members. And then we hear of orgs having 1-2 people or something like this. It is a little bit, you call that an organization? An organization should be basically 3 people at least, you know. And then we have this absolutely non-reducible minimum of organization, sometimes really almost ridiculous, because we had big orgs then. And of course we had not so many publics as I said before. As soon as you have been there, you were registered as a staff member, and then you had a public less. That was the big disadvantage. But it was really large, and there were many other orgs. We had about, I don't remember exactly, but 25-30 orgs in Europe alone, which were in the size between, well, a small org was probably 30-40 staff members, but most of the orgs were somehow between 60 and 120 staff members. That was huge organizations.
Очень круто. Все-таки, знаешь, еще хочется побольше узнать, сколько было аудиторов, как много они аудитировали, как много было админ-персонала, была ли вот эта пропорция, что технического персонала там, например, 25, а административного 50. Вот было ли что-то такое?
That was really always funny for me to see. I mean, we had an org, it's really a big org, you know, 79 staff members. I mean, that was the biggest figure. But normally we have been something between, let me say, 60 to 70 staff members. But we had only 2 auditors. Only 2 auditors. That was nothing. This was just nothing. The course room, I don't remember exactly how many, but with the DFT, 1 or 2 supervisor, 1 word clearer, and that's it. We had probably 4 or 5 people maximum in the course room who were supervising and so. and all the rest were somewhere else in the org. Well, then, of course, you had a qualsec, you had some terminals in qualification which also were called tech terminals. We had a DFP, for example, and so we had a CS, an examiner, and so. But those who really delivered, that was less than 10 people, absolutely less. And I always consider that a huge outpoint, because those who deliver, that should be the biggest division, that should be the most amount of people, that should be really rocking, you know, and it was not. It was a big outpoint. But we had also Div 6, where people have been supervised in Div 6 course room, that was also available, but still it was just not really big.
Хорошо, я правильно понимаю, что желательно иметь какую-то золотую середину, то есть то, что было много обслуживающего персонала, это давало возможность как-то двигаться, как-то вот, может быть, распространять больше, да. У нас, например, сейчас, может быть, в другую сторону, да, маятник качнулся, да, у нас мы мало уделяли долгое время админу, мало уделяли распространению, да, и у нас было очень много технических. То есть, наверное, должна быть какая-то золотая середина, да. Там тоже был, возможно, какой-то перекос, да?
That's a good question now where to go, because when I was staff member then, I really didn't understand what is the correct importance, what are the correct data. They were having a Div 6, there was admin, we had a big GO, a guardian's office, and in this guardian's office there's just admin. They were something with the governments, and I don't know what kind of issues they all had to do, but there were 12 or 14 people there, and it was top secret, top secret. There was a door, and this door was always locked, not only closed, and you can only go in when you had the key. And I was, in my 5 years, it was maybe once or twice in there. That was all, you know, just shortly. It was like a detective office. and then they were in Div 6, they were on the street. The only way we got actually to people was body routing, and I looked at it, and it was the only thing, and I thought, well, so we have to do it that way. But today I'm absolutely convinced this is wrong. And when you look carefully at the materials, L. Ron Hubbard never really said that. So later I saw that something goes terribly wrong, because we had absolutely the wrong target public in the org. Those people were just couldn't read really the language we are talking. They were not really interested. They had no money. After a few weeks, normally we lost them again, so we had to start all over with new people who were not interested. There were only a few people who always were really interested and continued with Scientology, but otherwise it was a big just Schaumschlägerei, as we say in German. It was just a lot of unnecessary work. I was not happy in those times, and I was really looking very critical at what's going on. Not at the technology, but how they tried to sell Scientology. But I didn't know better in those years.
Спасибо, очень интересно на самом деле. Скажи, а было что-то такое правильное, вот ценное и важное, чего, может быть, не хватает сейчас, или чего нам недостает, может быть?
I don't know. I mean, the main thing was auditing, was course that we have, but otherwise, I think there was nothing I would take from the church in the times today. I wouldn't. We had to get rid of so many wrong data and habits and behaviors, and I don't know what. It was so many things we really had to understand first and get rid of. And that was a long process after we left the church.
Понимаю.
We knew the technology is right, and that's what we are going for. And this is what I just said recently. We we were absolutely not interested in the admin. When we left the church, we actually said, we don't need the admin. It's absolutely unnecessary. It is what brought us in this disastrous condition we have been in. Let's get rid of it. That was the attitude then. And of course it was not translated. Most of it was not translated.
Поняла. Прежде чем мы перейдем вот к другой части твоей жизни, когда ты ушел из церкви, хотелось бы еще спросить о твоей карьере в церкви Саентологии, потому что я случайно узнала, что ты был секретарем Квала. Можешь рассказать о той деятельности, которая у тебя тогда была?
I got into Scientology, and the first my career was pretty steep. I made the com course, then I made student head, which was a tough gradient, and then I made the staff status because I became a staff member, and then I made new aerodynamics course, and then I made level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the middle of it I made also somewhere the minister's course. So, and that was, I don't remember exactly when that was done, probably June 79 or so. And then I tried to do the internships to all those courses, but there was a big problem then. People were all clear or were waiting for being attested to clear, and I was not clear, and if you are not clear, you could not audit those people. So I had no PCs, and I had to run for PCs and didn't know how to do that, and the org didn't provide me with any PCs, so that was a big problem. And somewhere in October, November, they were looking for a qualsec, and so they took me. That's very simple. So I was a little bit more than a year in Scientology. I was class 4 auditor, I was a new aerodynamics auditor, and I was qualsec. So I was sent to Copenhagen for an instant heading, which was about a week or 10 days, I don't remember exactly. And when I came back, I had to implement actually the purification rundown. And as a qualsec, I had, of course, a division to run. That means I had an examiner, I had an internship supervisor, I had an SSO, a staff section officer or supervisor. So that I had about 5 staffs or so. Basically also the senior CS was also in my division, but she was not really my junior. It was not really vice versa, but somehow we had nothing to do with each other. But she was also there, so that was what I had to do, and I was responsible for all these things, and it was quite an intensive time, and I learned a lot because I had to study references. I had to find references all over in the admin, but mainly in the technology, and I had to find out how everything is rigged together, and had to handle cases and so on. It was a challenge. It was a huge challenge, but I learned a lot. And one of the things what helped me lately so very much was the Qual library. So there was supposed to have an issue of every bulletin or policy, chronological in there, and on every issue was written master copy, do not remove. And that was a huge library with all the policies in English and in German, and that showed me the importance of the materials. And because I had to put that into order, then I also saw, this is here and this is available and that's possible, and so I got all these references. That was really, really helpful for me later, because I got a knowledge about the importance of the materials.
Круто. То есть вообще, вот как я сейчас вижу, тогда ты начал уже, в принципе, задумываться о том, что нужно собирать материалы, и я вот просто сейчас увидела, что то, что ты потом делал уже в Ронсоргах, и Эрика говорила, что ты покупал каждую книжку, когда у вас даже не было достаточно средств, вот, ты их собирал, и сейчас мы имеем на самом деле вот тот сайт, который ты сделал, на который нельзя сейчас напасть, то есть он сделан таким образом, да, что его сейчас нельзя уничтожить, да, нельзя закрыть. И я сейчас даже подумала, что, может быть, то, что мы имеем сейчас, благодаря тому, что ты вот так вот собирал эти материалы, недостающие части, и там как ты собирал или рандауны, ну, то есть получается вообще твоя заслуга, что ты уже тогда начал это делать.
Yes, this was quite a big degree. It started then, but of course all the materials we have today, it's not from me from then. I mean, I collected later more and more, and computer was really a big help to collect it and put it together. But later about, it was the beginning of the 90s when I actually became a staff member again in the Ronsorg. I was confronted with this subject again, then of course with the copyrights and to protect them, I mean to distribute the materials and use it, and not getting into problems with the church regarding the copyright and so on. And that was then when I made a big decision. I said, okay, we cannot sell the materials, so we would need the money for distributing it, and I said, let's do it nevertheless, but we just give it for free. We need it because we will make the money with the delivery of Scientology, I mean with the courses and with auditing, but we will not sell the materials, but we have it as a basis that we can deliver. So that was later the continuation of that.
Да. У меня не было этого вопроса, но мне кажется, это будет очень интересно людям. Я помню время, когда ты положил вот эти материалы на сайт, и была такая атака церкви, и такие претензии и попытки даже судиться, да, но все кончилось тем, что эта атака прекратилась. И мы общались, может быть, я не четко понимаю, как там это все было, но как я поняла, что ты выяснил в процессе вот этих вот всех вот переговоров с юристами и так далее, что, возможно, у церкви и нет вот этих авторских прав, потому что потом они не довели даже до суда. То есть как там вот все было? Можешь чуть-чуть раскрыть вот эту тему?
In actual fact, I was not so much involved in copyright cases and so on. It was all flow 3. I have seen how others got attacked and how others were actually eliminated by making settlements and signing basically that they are no more will do any Scientology, and that destroyed quite a lot of friends of us in the regard of the delivery. For example, there was Christina Andreas Sutter, Andreas Judin and his wife, don't remember the first name of his wife. They made finally a settlement with the church that they do no more use the materials, and if they do, they would have to pay a fine of, I don't remember, 5,000 Swiss francs, I guess, for every instance. So that would end up in a huge sum, and this is what they signed. And so I was on flow 3, I watched that, and I watched other people how they run into such troubles. And finally they tried to avoid it in this way and so on. But we lost a lot of people due to these actions. And I was not really involved in that, happily. But I was aware of, we need to handle that. And I had, of course, not a big idea how to do that really, because I'm not a lawyer, I never came from this subject, but I was looking at it and started to evaluate and see, and when I got the settlement from this Sutter and Judin, you know, this Advanced Ability Center where we had our service from, where we made our OT levels and the training, the NOTS training, Erika made the training there, so finally they made the settlement with the church and the center was closed. So I got a copy of that. I could read the settlement, and I was absolutely shocked. I read it several times and didn't believe it. Then I asked Ottfried, is this really true what's written here? Because they got 20,000 Swiss francs in return that they sign it. And I was looking there and said, that was not looking like a real loss. They were somehow prompted into signing this contract, and there is something fishy, terribly fishy. But of course I didn't understand what's really behind it. And actually it's all your fault, the Russian fault, because we have been here in Russia. It's about year 2000 now, we're talking about this time. And I recognized we are expanding, also in Switzerland, of course. We got quite some resonance because of this mission in Russia. And that meant they will sooner or later attack me, the church. So I need to do something about it. And I started to dig in all what is possible.
Да, много ты, конечно, сделал, чтобы действительно все это было. Вернемся сейчас немножко к уходу из церкви. Эрика мне рассказала, что для нее было важным это искажение технологии, когда ее заставляли искажать технологию. То есть это отсутствие правильного урегулирования овертфисхолдов, когда продолжали после там, Кая, да, когда начали проверять процессы ступеней на показания. А что для тебя было вот такой переломной точкой, когда ты просто понял, что все, больше здесь оставаться нельзя, нужно уходить и нужно продолжать вне?
My biggest concern was that I do something I regret heavily later. Because when you have been on staff, you had to force other people, mainly publics, but also staff, to go in a certain direction, to do something and demand something from them. And that was going absolutely more and more against my integrity. And that was really one of the things I was aware of, that I do not want to end up in that. So, but after all, it was not the only reason. There were plenty of reasons, I would say, dozens if not hundreds of reasons, which just added up to say, I need to make a change in my life, but I didn't know what to do, how to do it, where to go. That was very difficult, but it ended up that finally I just refused to do the DEC project force, as it was called.
И вот вы уходите, и в какой-то момент вы узнаете про то, что делает Билл Робертсон, да? Знакомитесь. Также я узнала от Эрики, что она еще до знакомства с Биллом Робертсоном проходила в коаудитинге, потом дальше проходила эти уровни, потом вы узнаете про Билла Робертсона, и вот мне хочется узнать, как ты его воспринял, как ты вообще увидел этого человека, что он делает, почему доверился ему.
That was mainly Erika's job, not so much mine. Because when I left the church, someone had to make money, and that was me. So I went out and went to my father to continue to work there, and I took a job in Bern. And later in end 86 and 87, we bought our first flat, and I was involved very much in renovating that. And on top of that, of course, I did my continuation of the a little bit of the auditing, and I tested clear finally and made the OT levels. Yes, it was me who went with Markus Rüedi then, and I don't remember, probably, I don't remember who else was. We were three. Anyway, we went to Langenthal, we went to meet Sutters and Judines, and there was also Sylvie Steiner was there, and Arnold Hellman was there, and so the organization was founded. So I was basically a founding member then of the Advanced Stability Centers in Langenthal. Also, I didn't have a lot to do with it. And what I didn't know, that Sylvie Steiner and Arnold Hermann, they were very close with Captain Bill, and Captain Bill was basically the initiator behind it. And I didn't know that then. My English was pretty little then, and it was not talked a lot about it, and I didn't know those people, you know. I was just there because I knew, oh, there's something going on, I have to go there. That seems to be the exit from the problem I have had in the church. So I went there alone. Erika was not part of it, and finally, in the middle of the night, from about 3 o'clock, I went into bed, and she was not really happy. You're going to the squirrels? It was a small squirrel in the bed, but the other day it was all handled, and she also came to Langenthal and continued the bridge there, you know. So that was this one, and I didn't see Captain Bill so much. I mean, we organized then in 85, there was a convention, the first convention. I was part of it, and it was one of the first conventions anyway. We organized in Switzerland, and there was a year later was also a convention organized also in Switzerland. In the second one, that was 85, 86 was the first convention, 87 the second convention. There was David Mayo there. So they were somewhere in Melchsefrut in the mountains, was David Mayo there, and I remember clearly that I asked David Mayo if he does really have these OT materials which allegedly should be in a safe somewhere and so on, and he denied he doesn't have it, and from what I heard, he also didn't know what was on it. And it was a bit strange for me because, you know, he was the senior CS, he was the senior CS in the church, and it was strange. Why doesn't he know it? Why was it in a safe, somehow sealed, and nobody had read it, and he didn't? It ended up in a nowhere, in a dead end. So that was the point. And yes, I have seen later Captain Bill on lectures, I mean on seminars and so on. I was on a seminar in the class 4 seminar, wasn't the class 8 seminar, but my connection to him was not very strong. I have seen him again and again and again, but I didn't really belong to the circle who was speaking with him. So I was sitting beside him sometimes, but my English was, as I said, was relatively limited then. Probably if I would see him today, I would have many, many questions to him.
Поняла. Очень интересно на самом деле. А как ты воспринял идею сети, развития как сеть? Потому что церковь развивалась как бы иерархически, да? А Билл Робертсон сказал, что это опасно, потому что если мы опять выстроим такую иерархическую структуру, она будет захвачена, она будет развалена, поэтому мы должны развиваться как сеть. Вот какое у тебя было восприятие тогда этой идеи? Понравилась ли она?
You have to understand, in those years, we were PTS. What PTS does mean? We were extremely under pressure of the church. We were always alert that the church can attack us at any second. I mean, it was horrifying. You cannot imagine how PTS you can be when you have not been in it. I think even you in the USR have never experienced it so seriously, being PTS to the government as we have been PTS to the church. The church was attacking us absolutely constantly with all possible means, and we have been really terrified. I mean, when we organized the conventions, for example, that was such a secrecy thing, and we nevertheless failed, but we were really PTS. I cannot put it in other words. And if we talk about PTS, we are talking about a serious PTSness. And this is how we lived. And the structure of that we had a flat structure was not something which was directed by Captain Bill. That was just a logical consequence of the circumstances. You couldn't grow if you are bigger than 3 people. You know, you got attacked. Even if you were 1 person or 2 person delivering, you got attacked. So the bigger you got, the more serious you oppose yourself. The more you're visible, you know, and it was a horrible time.
Да,
it's hard to put that into words. I mean, today we have absolutely freedom, we have a bright horizon, we have nothing to fear anymore. And that changed somewhere the year 2000 to 2010 it started to change, and it was more or less the end with the SDSS that started to end it all. Well, still took some years. I mean, we still have today organizations which are hiding, which are not naming, not giving any address, not any home, but they are existing. They're calling themselves Ronsorgs, but you can't find them. They still today, they are still in this horrified condition of the church, still today.
Я теперь понимаю, поняла. Мы ухватили немножко от этого. В начале, когда мы начинали, мы чувствовали давление обвинения постоянно с церкви, и в то же время мы были практически нелегальны, потому что нас все время саентология, вы не можете предоставлять саентологию, поэтому немножко я знаю, что это такое, но чуть-чуть, наверное.
Yes, you have had it. I remember we have been in Solnitschny and there was a bus outside with churches who hindered and stopped all from our people coming in and out, and even people who didn't belong to us. And it was in the cold, it was snow, it was minus 10 degrees, and they were in the bus, it was so ridiculous. It was so...
Yes.
Today we can laugh about it.
Yes.
And we even had the spies in our camps. I remember there was one guy, also in Solnitschny, there was one guy, finally we found out he is a plant from the church.
Yes, I remember.
And then we had to make rules and regulations and policies how to avoid that we get such people on our lines. That was somehow the ending of it.
Да, точно. Прежде чем идти немножко дальше, хочу спросить очень важную вещь для меня. К нам сейчас часто приходят люди из церкви Сcientологии, и их все больше и больше, потому что у нас закрылась церковь Сcientологии. И иногда они мне задают вопрос про Билла Робертсона, или вообще у вас тут нет четкой структуры или что-то такое. Иногда я даже не знаю, что ответить, но я знаю, что у тебя очень много опыта урегулирования таких ситуаций, много разговоров, и в основном после того, как ты общаешься с этими людьми, они спокойно приходят в Ронсорг. Расскажи, пожалуйста, какие основные возражения есть у людей, которые переходят из церкви, и как ты отвечаешь им на это?
When the people have arrived in our org, this kind of concerns are already handled. Otherwise they wouldn't come to us. It's very rarely that we have really to handle some serious issues with them. I don't remember. I mean, you have an absolutely different situation here. The Church of Scientology actually was, already termed, imploded. And that left a lot of people around, and they really erring around what the hell I'm going to do, and they are very reluctant to go to the free zone. We have to understand that when you are in the church, you are absolutely reluctant to the squirrels and so on, so they hesitate extremely. And we don't have that in Switzerland. I mean, the church is just fading out silently in Switzerland. They're just disappearing somehow. We don't hear anything from them anymore. I think David Miscavige, I don't know exactly what happened. This is all what we have to extrapolate. Somehow 5 or 10 years ago, something happened that Miscavige had to go into defense. He is somehow hiding. Police obviously is after him, but I don't know exactly when it started. I don't know exactly when he started to hide. He got aged, he is no more so beautiful. He is no more so much in the sports studio. I don't know what he is doing, but he is disappearing, and the pressure from the church started to disappear. So that means the church is no more attacking us. They are fading out, disappearing, and sometimes someone comes. The bad news is actually most of the Scientologists just disappears in the nowhere, and maybe we catch them up next lifetime, but they are really, we lost so many companions, so many friends, because they just got too old. The church has bled them out. You know, they took them all their money, all their energy, all their time, and they are now just tired. I mean, they are also aged. I'm rather a young Scientologist compared to the people leaving from the church. That's quite a problem. And so these people are now retired. They are 70. They've partially already passed away. So they are not coming to us. So we face something absolutely different than what you do.
Поняла. Просто мы когда были в Америке, помнишь, на миссии, там собралось много саентологов, которые ушли из церкви, и в разговорах мы слышали такую вещь, что стандартно обучиться можно только в церкви саентологии. То есть они вроде бы ушли из церкви, к нам не присоединяются, к Ронсоргам, потому что у них есть эта идея, что стандарты только там. Вот что это у них за барьер такой? Почему вот это какое-то имплантирование, что ли, это какой-то гипноз? Вот не могут они переступить эту черту.
I remember how you have been shocked there. Class 8, Class 6, wow, even Class 12, I don't remember. Wow. And then finally, but why don't they audit? Why didn't they do anything? Actually, two things. First of all, the tech got altered, what I said. I mean, they were really misled with the wrong technology. And the other thing is the PTSness to the church. I mean, they got... I really could say at a certain moment, the closer you are to the SP, I mean, closer to international, to the miscarriage, the more PTS you are. And we in Europe were a little bit in the middle, but Russia was far away, so you are much less PTS to this suppression from the church than we have been. But when you are in the US, and in the US you have a different kind of law, different kind of jurisdicative, which is much more dramatic. You can attack someone much more serious than you can attack someone in Europe, in Switzerland, for example. And I think in Russia, they had absolutely no possibility to attack you. It was not somehow possible. So, yes, that was, I mean, the main thing was really the people were derailed from the standard tech long ago, and they didn't know. They thought, well, that's all still all rage, you know, with new aerodynamics, with happiness around down, key to life, all those things, you know, which changed there in these years, and the extreme suppression.
Поняла, теперь я поняла. Да. И перейдем к твоему принятию приглашения приехать в Россию, потому что в какой-то момент это произошло. То есть там вы развивались, и вот настал тот момент, когда наши пути соединились. Как ты воспринял это приглашение? Что ты об этом думал? Как ты думал, это будет развиваться?
Well, we were just bored. I mean, we had a small organization, we had not much to do. And then we thought, hey, that's a challenge, that's good, let's do something. We can fill up our time with something sensible, you know, something serious, good thing, you know, let's go for that. But we were absolutely far from understanding what kind of project that will be. Well, we just went there and said, okay, let's deliver the HQS, but that's simple, you know. But we didn't think of much more than that, you know. That all the training will follow, the OT levels will follow, and much more. We were not aware then. We just took one step after the other. That was very simple. and it was a big challenge then. You know, it was really a time which where, you know, our society changed a lot in this time. It was exactly the time when computers were introduced in our society. I mean, I was rather a bit conservative, and I was not so much in computer because I didn't see the need in it in the beginning. So that was probably something I should have done much earlier. I should have involved in computer about 5 or 10 years earlier than I did. When we came to Russia, the need for a computer was suddenly there, and I was not ready for that. I mean, I was not trained for that. So I had to learn that. I had to learn how to deal with a computer, and I had no help in the beginning. It was really a disaster for me. And then we had to scan all the materials, and these materials were available, but I had to learn to deal with that and so on. I had to prepare the course packs. I mean, we had the materials, but they were not in a way and form that we just had a pack. So that were all coming up to my plate, how to deal with that. Finally, a friend of mine helped me very much in that, and instructed me in computers and set it up correctly. So that was very, very helpful. But in the beginning, I was swimming around. That was quite something. But we just started, and we had no idea what project is coming to us.
But мы были очень серьезно настроены.
We found out very soon.
А в какой момент ты понял, что все серьезно?
I don't know exactly when was that moment. It didn't take me so long to understand it, but when we decided to come to Russia for the HQS, I was absolutely not aware what will happen. I was absolutely not aware that we started a big, big project. It was...
Понимаю. Слушай, ну, было сделано и до сих пор делается очень много, то есть предоставлены уровни IT, эльрандауны, это шикарнейший просто вообще какой-то прорыв. Сейчас админ-технологии, то есть реально произведено, ну, как я чувствую, мощнейшее действие по клированию планеты, вот прямо вот в процессе. А вот скажи, было ли что-то, или вообще, вот если бы ты начал с самого начала, сделал ли бы ты что-то по-другому?
The first thing I would change, I would stand up much earlier and say, here I am, I deliver. You know, this PTSness back then I was talking about, that was such an humiliating condition. And I wished, I mean, I set up, then another friend set up a homepage for us, but we were also absolutely anonymous on this page. You could just send an email to some place, but there was no name, no email address really, nothing was there, nothing, you know. And I would have changed that definitely. And also that with the computer, if I would go back in time, 1990, I would have bought me a computer, even it was expensive then, and I would have learned it and started with that much earlier. That would have been so much a help. And that was the main thing. And what also I have never understood in those years was the importance of books. I would have started with the books much earlier because this is the main dissemination line. And it took me so many years to understand that this is the most important dissemination line. Everything else was really solutions to problems which were absolutely wrong. And if I would have understood that earlier, what I learned in the last few years, that would be so helpful back then. We would stand, especially in Russia, we would stand on another place. In those years, you know, at a certain moment I had this saying or this picture that I have somehow 50 sledge dogs in front of me, and I'm on a sledge, you know, and they were just like in the morning going ahead, and I had to, the most important thing is not to fall down, and the second one to give somehow a direction, but I was basically always a little bit behind, you know. I couldn't really make the decision, let's go that direction, so I just had to go a little bit in this direction or in that direction, because many things I just didn't know correctly. For me and for Erika, of course, and for the full movement, it was an absolutely perfect match. I was so happy that we got Russia, because it forced us to understand L. Ron Hubbard really. it was extremely, I mean, we understood basically Scientology just on the surface. We had no deep understanding, so we thought we have a good understanding. No, we were on the surface, and this is what also explains what happened in the US with this class 8s and 6 and so on. But I really had to go deeply in and to find the deviations or the derail of the technology where the tech really was off the rails, and to find out what happened really, what is the real correct technology, not just a little bit, you know. It is we really had to fix it from the scratch. We couldn't do just a little bit cosmetics. That was really a challenge, and I had many questions which took me literally decades to clear it. I mean, things which were already strange, crossing my mind when I was staff, and I looked at it and I said, what the hell is this? This is absolutely contradictory. It doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. And it took me literally decades to sort it out and to put it back correctly. And there were many small things, and thanks to that we got Russia, I had to do that. Without that, I would just have been in my comfort zone and I wouldn't have found out really. But that was really a perfect match, and I'm very happy that we had this chance to sort that out. That was so important, and sometimes I really think if we wouldn't have had that, Scientology would be lost, completely lost. And nobody would have done this job. Nobody understood it. There was nobody around. As you have seen in America, there were class 8s, class 6. There were so many trained people, but didn't do anything, nothing. There is still today, when I have to send someone asks me, you know, oh, well, I would like to do some training in the US. Where can I go? Where can I get? I have actually no address. It's empty. It's a big desert. I have to say, you know, look, best you come to Switzerland, and that's for most of the people too big challenge. It's too far away. But again, I'm very happy that I was confronted with Russia and I had to learn it all. It gave me a lot, really. I'm very thankful for that. Even so, I had to work hard, and it was a tough time, but it was really worth doing it.
Супер. Дорогие друзья, мы сейчас делаем перерыв, потому что данных очень много, они очень интересные, и мы продолжим в следующий день. Спасибо огромное, мне очень интересно, буду ждать, когда мы продолжим и обсудим все остальные темы.
Pleasure was on my side.
Спасибо.